And we may have only recently got the USS Enterprise G in Star Trek Picard's third and final season, but for all those Star Trek Voyager fans, we just got a look at the successor to the legendary ship that beat the odds, the Borg, several times, and then travelled 70,000 light years home, the one and only USS Voyager. Now, the legacy of Voyager is significant, to say the least. Following its return from the Delta Quadrant, the original ship was decommissioned, and then it was put on display at the Ship Museum at Antham Prime. Though the original USS Voyager may have been decommissioned, its successor continues on its legacy. A legacy that will apparently last even into the 32nd century, and the 11th vessel to bear the name Voyager, the USS Voyager-J. But before we jump all that far into the future, let's have a look at the brand new starship in the line of Voyagers, the USS Voyager-A. I'm not going to make that joke again. Let's go.
Oh, I have a much bigger plan for us. Well, are you coming or not?
Welcome to Trek Central, lords, ladies, and sovereigns. I am your host, Lieutenant Commander Adam, and I have returned at long last from my vacation to what I'm being told to say was absolutely Ryza and nowhere else. Many thanks to Captain Jack and the rest of the team for covering me while I've been away. They're Galaxy class indeed. Make sure to hit that subscribe button to catch our next Starship Explained video later on this week. And as always, please let us know your thoughts in the comment section below, because if you're talking about Star Trek, we want to hear about it. I'm losing it, I've done too many of these. So, Star Trek Prodigy Season 1 hinted to us at the inclusion of the USS Voyager-A with 2 shuttlecraft bearing the registry NCC 74656-A, which of course is the registry of Voyager. However, including that letter A on the edge had fans immediately knowing which ship these shuttles belonged to, the next Voyager. With the news of Prodigy Season 2 not being released on Paramount+, kind of wondered if we would ever see the next ship in this prestigious line. I mean, Picard even included a USS Voyager-B, leaving the gap open for the Voyager-A to appear on the screen at some point. And of course, we're going to keep you up to date on any news about where we might see Star Trek Prodigy Season 2 release when we know. But at Star Trek Las Vegas, a convention, not a casino, although, can you imagine how amazing it would be to see a giant Quarks in the middle of the strip? In your face, Caesar's Palace. The showrunners of Prodigy, the Higman brothers, were lucky enough to show a clip from the second season of Prodigy itself. This wasn't only for congoers either, as the clip was later released online, letting us see this glorious vessel in at least some of its glory. The new USS Voyager-A is a Lamar Special Class Science Starship named after Hedy Lamarr, an Austro-Hungarian-born American actress and inventor, and absolutely not my favorite character in Blazing Saddles. She was quite legendary in her own right, inventing essentially radio-controlled torpedoes that could not easily be tracked or jammed. The new USS Voyager-A seems to have been constructed at Utopia Planitia in orbit of Mars, which makes a lot of sense considering who its class was named after. Utopia Planitia is, after all, where the legendary ships are built. The Protostar class, of course, was also under construction at the time, although it was taking longer than expected. Utopia Planitia would also create the Romulan evacuation fleet for the Romulan relocation mission, which the rest of Starfleet was engaged in at the time. The Lamar class combines the previous Intrepid-class, USS Voyager, with some Sovereign-inspired styling. The saucer and deflector are essentially the same as the Intrepid-class minus the Aero Shuttle, but let's face it, no one's ever going to miss the Aero Shuttle because we never really got to see it. And now I've just made myself sad. Sorry. What has replaced the area where the Aero Shuttle was located is not really known, though that location on Starship usually tends to house sensors, so that's a possibility. The top and rear of the saucer were slightly different, however, with more structural bracing-style structures near the impulse engines. The ship also wasn't as curvy as its predecessor, with a more boxy back end, which housed the central shuttle bay, which I wouldn't be surprised to have a vehicle replicator, since Voyagers are notorious for having more shuttles than they should. These class of shuttles were brand new and were most likely Type 12 or maybe even Type 13 shuttlecraft, which are quite spacious to the point where you can even house a briefing table inside them. The nacelles were also more sovereign in style, with relatively flat rears. This was a marked difference to the Intrepid-class nacelles, which connected with variable geometry pylons, raising the nacelles while the ship was at warp and lowering them when it was at sublight speeds. Considering the Intrepid-class was the only ship we've seen with variable geometry pylons, this technology probably needed to catch on and was probably superseded by other designs on starships. Interestingly, the ship had 29 decks, 800 plus crew, and 2 schools, which puts it in the same school as the Galaxy class, which probably marks it out as a future long-range science vessel, though not as long as 70,000 light-years away, with any luck. Regarding interiors, following other ships in Starfleet design, the Lamar class moved away from carpeted interiors. The corridors were much more spacious, though, than the Intrepid class was. Thank goodness for that. The mission of the USS Voyager-A, with Admiral Janeway back in the captain's seat, is to investigate a wormhole which seemingly connects to the Solum of the future, a war-torn world of the Vo-Nakat, where Captain Chakotay is currently stranded. There's also a possibility that the Doctor, previously the EMH and CMO of the original Voyager, might also be serving on board the Voyager-A. As we said before, the Voyager-A is not the only new Voyager that we've seen recently. If you think back to Star Trek Picard Season 3, you can spot the Voyager-B. We've got to look at Raffi's scenes during her conspiracy investigation. She thinks the Federation Frontier Day event may be the target, a celebration of a 250th anniversary of the first flight of the NX-01, which I promised myself I would not go off track into a massive debate about in this video, that will gather tons of Starfleet vessels and people together. This conspiracy turned out to be accurate, because of course it was, and it was orchestrated by your favourite queen and mine, the Borg Queen, which Admiral Janeway from the future had infected with a neurolytic pathogen, lest we forget. This decimated the collective, of course, and made the Queen want vengeance against the Federation rather badly. The Federation was saved, of course, but unfortunately it wasn't the Voyager-B to come destroying the Borg Queen once and for all, but a rebuilt USS Enterprise D, with another ship's star drive attached to it. Oh god, I'm gonna say it, aren't I? You want me to say it? I can't even hear you, but I'm gonna assume you're saying yes. Hashtag poor star drive. Oh, it's good to be home. It's a bit of a shame that we didn't really get very many details on the Voyager-B beyond this tiny ship cameo, shipio, whatever. But we do know that it was a Pathfinder-class. Introduced in the Star Trek Online MMO video game in 2410, the Pathfinder-class represents a long-range science vessel upgrade, basically, of the famed Intrepid-class frame. This was needed during the planning for Operation Delta Rising in the timeline of the game, which would see a return of the Federation and its allies to the Delta Quadrant via the use of the Iconian gateways. In canon, however, we don't know the circumstances around the introduction or development of the Pathfinder-class ship. Does this mean the USS Voyager-A was decommissioned or maybe even destroyed? I mean, let's face it, that will be following a rather unfortunate trend. It can't be confirmed, but we only see the USS Voyager-OG model at the Starfleet Ship Museum, which leads me to believe that it was probably blown up at some point. Unless, of course, it was inside the space station at Antham Prime. I mean, let's face it, they probably have room for everything in there. Might as well rename it Noah's Space Ark. When discussing the Voyager-A and the continued legacy of the original USS Voyager, we of course do eventually have to bring up the Voyager-J in the 32nd century. Now, this was a 32nd century variant, or perhaps redesign, of the Intrepid-class. With the new knowledge that Starfleet has Constitution 3 classes, or Neo-Constitution classes, or some other kitbash retrofit upgrade class, we can obviously imagine that this might be designated something like the Intrepid 2 class, or whatever. Though with the Constitution 3 class having a nickname, I would like it if the possible Intrepid 4 class could be called the Janeway class, because she deserves it. Now, when these Intrepid classes were first developed or launched is completely unknown, but we know that at least 3 of them were present in the year 3069 in the incident known as the Burn. That was the one where dilithium exploded and then went inert across the entire galaxy, which caused all active warp cores in the galaxy to destabilize due to dilithium's use as an energy regulator in matter-antimatter reactions and caused these warp cores to overload. The new Intrepid-class, however, was still in use during the post-burn era, with the most notable of these vessels being the USS Voyager-J, the 11th ship to bear the name. The J was active in 3189 when the USS Discovery arrived from the past. The ship was crucial, like most of the fleet, in maintaining the Federation HQ's Pax-class USS Federation's protection field. Who was the captain of the USS Voyager during this time? Nobody knows. But surely they would have to be a great captain in their own right to have been given a posting aboard the Voyager-J. Or maybe they were just made of coffee. I mean, let's face it, it would fit. The Voyager-J would then be refit in the newly constructed Archer space dock with the newly constructed pathway drive, which was hoped to reduce the dilithium dependency of conventional warp drives. The Federation President, Lyra Rilak, would be shortlisting someone for command of the Voyager-J, suggesting the ship did not have a permanent commanding officer or that the current one was due to retire or be reassigned. Or perhaps they had drank themselves to death. Oh god, I can't stop with the Mel Brooks films references. Ultimately, we will need to wait and see how the Lamar-class fares whenever and wherever we get to see Prodigy Season 2. So far, the ship looks glorious, if a little blocky at the rear, and its design a fitting successor to the Intrepid-class, at least in my opinion. I wonder not only what Star Trek Prodigy Season 2 will have the Lamar-class starship doing on its mission to investigate this new temporal wormhole, but what the future will bring for this ship class, considering around 20 years later there will be a USS Voyager-B. But what do you think? Do you like what we've seen of the Lamar-class already? Are you looking forward to seeing Star Trek Prodigy Season 2? If so, make sure not only to comment here, but spread the word that you want Star Trek Prodigy saved and on our screens somewhere, because Prodigy truly is a special Trek show, and we want to see what the next 20 episodes will have in store for us. If you want to keep up to date on all the latest Star Trek news, lore, and more, then make sure you hit that subscribe button to never miss a video from the team here at Trek Central, and you can of course follow us on social media or join our community Discord server. For now, I've been Lieutenant Commander Adam, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Live long and prosper, my friends.